The subcommittee is called to order, and even though this will be the final Europe, Eurasia, and Emerging Threats Subcommittee hearing for the 113th Congress, we will be discussing an important topic, the Arctic and the opportunities for America as an Arctic nation. In 2009, the House Foreign Affairs Committee held a hearing on the high north, which approached the Arctic, through which, of course, what's been happening since then is people have been only seeing this through the lens of global warming. While we all recognize that there is receding ice, the purpose of this hearing is not to debate science, whether what is taking place is part of a natural cycle, as happened so many times in the past in the Earth's history, or can be traced to humankind's use of CO2 producing internal combustion engines. The fact, whatever it is, the fact remains that the Arctic is more accessible now than it has been in decades, and Arctic policy should not be just reduced to one particular issue, especially a disagreement on why the climate is changing. I am honored that today's subcommittee hearing will be the first time Admiral Robert Papp testifies in his new role as the U.S. Special Representative for the Arctic. And I thank you for being with us today and look forward to hearing your testimony and being able to get some of the strategy that you're going to be laying down and some of your perceptions of which way we should go. As the Arctic geography has changed, new opportunities have emerged, and those are the opportunities to access deposits of oil, natural gas, and other minerals. Additionally, Arctic sea lanes have become passable for increasingly longer periods of time during the summer months, cutting around 4,000 miles off the distance required to sail between Asia and Europe. A version of the long-sought Northwest Passage may be materializing right before our eyes. The increased activity has challenged the governments of Arctic nations to effectively govern the high north, build new infrastructure, and expand capabilities to operate in such harsh conditions. To help realize some of these new opportunities, the 8 Arctic countries, including the United States, created a high-level diplomatic forum called the Arctic Council. In April of 2015, it will be America's turn to assume the rotating chairmanship of this council for 2 years. This will give our government the ability to set an agenda, just in time, Admiral. Today, the subcommittee will hear key details about what will be on that agenda, how to prioritize, and what priorities we should have, which ones will serve our national interest and promote responsible development. Let me just note that there are 50,000 Americans who live in the Arctic, but this is much more than just a local issue for Alaskans. The vast resources of the Arctic can and should be wisely promoted and used to increase our prosperity and as well the well-being of our people. If the Arctic nations can do this successfully, so can we. Our government's role is to ensure private industry follows the rules and uses good practices, but not to block progress. We should all be mindful that other Arctic nations are seeking ways to use the Arctic for their own advantage. Chinese scholars, for example, have taken to calling China a near-Arctic state. Chinese military officials have commented that China has an indispensable role to play in the Arctic. Well, if we don't put in place effective policies for the Arctic and then follow through on those policies, we know who is waiting in the wings to fill the void. We also cannot ignore Russia's prominent role in the Arctic. And while the Russian relationship with the transatlantic community is at its lowest point since I was elected to Congress, since 1989. We should not ignore the possibility of a productive relationship with Russia in this polar region. It perhaps, let me put it this way, we can cooperate with people like this even though we have disagreements with them, and maybe by cooperating in those areas, maybe we can overcome some of those other challenges. Lastly, I want to hold this hearing now to let our friends and allies in the Arctic Council know that their cooperation and their collaboration on key projects is being noticed and appreciated on Capitol Hill. It was also important to hold this hearing before the U.S. chairmanship began to take place, to lay down some clear benchmarks and some of the metrics that we can use to judge whether or not your chairmanship and our leadership is actually accomplishing the goals we want it to accomplish. So I thank all the witnesses for being with us today. We will have two panels. The first, as I say, was Special Representative Papp, and the second, a panel of private experts. Without objection, all members will have till the end of this week to submit additional written questions or extraneous material for the record. And I now would like to have Mr. Keating, our ranking member, give his opening remarks.